Hey there, Scott back here again, just a guy making a pie. And this is actually pie number 7 in my pie a month challenge where I'm learning to bake. And for number 7, I'm going completely over the edge and trying something entirely different. And for that, I will have to bring in some experts because I really have no idea what I'm doing. We're ready to go, almost, but you'll see. Got everything I need for the crust. We're going to go through and make the crust a little bit, but so we got ice cold butter that'll come in handy. We have a little bit of sugar to add a little bit of sweetness into the crust, but I tend to go lighter than what most recipes say, and then some salt. And we have ice water chilling in the freezer. I don't want to bring that out yet. But you'll notice one key ingredient missing: flour. That's because, like I said, we're doing a gluten-free. I can't just pull my flour out of the pantry and say, hey, I'm going to call this gluten-free. And this is where I need the experts. I know zero about gluten-free stuff. But luckily, I have an expert who is able to clue me in. This here is my son, Sam.
Hi, everybody.
And Sam is married to Sophie, who is gluten-free. Mm-hmm. So Sam, although he's a little more experienced as a baker than I am, but he too is a novice baker, but he knows gluten-free.
I do. Yeah, everything I bake these days is gluten-free. Maybe not everything, but I find the key to gluten-free is sponsorship plug here, not actually, but Bob's Red Mill. This is a 1-to-1 flour blend that is specifically formulated to essentially be just a 1-to-1 swap, specifically for kind of the sweet baking, pastries, cookies, not so much bread, but pies, cakes, etc. So this is a great way to take an existing recipe, which I understand has been perfected over 6 trial runs.
Yeah.
Take an existing recipe and make it gluten-free, except I find in my baking there's one ingredient that really elevates the final product, and that is tapioca flour. This really adds a nice creamy sweetness to the end result of the bake. And so something with like a pie, tapioca flour really creates that nice, good flavor for the crust, gives you nice sweetness, and it also kind of helps with the actual, the dough itself. Sometimes gluten-free dough can be a little crumbly, and so tapioca flour will help absorb it and make it absorb the water, make it a bit more sticky so that it's kind of more akin to what a gluten pie crust would be like.
So, we're ready. We're going to get some things prepared, and we're still going to go through and make the pie crust this time, including the mixing, rolling out, all of that. So this may be a little bit longer, but from my perspective, after hearing about the 1-for-1 flour, it's a pie crust like I've been making. So hopefully it turns out, and we'll be back in a sec. Okay, we're ready to make the crust. We have all our ingredients pre-measured out. Got some ice water here. It's half a cup, but according to my experts,
we need more water than really the recipe calls for, just a little bit.
And usually I kind of mess with it anyways too, so it's perfect for what I do. Cup of butter, cubed already. It's been in the freezer to keep it cold, so it should be fine. Only half of a teaspoon of salt, because I do use salted butter instead of unsalted butter. And then 2 teaspoons of sugar, and let Sam tell you about the flour.
All right, so the recipe calls for 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Like I said, the Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 is great for swapping. So I've got 2 cups of Bob's Red Mill and then a half cup of the tapioca flour. And you're probably wondering, well, why half cup and the tapioca flour, and why 2 cups of this? And that's really just up to pure speculation. the way I cook. I find that as a general rule of thumb, if I really want that tapioca consistency and flavor, I ballpark about 1/4 of the total volume of flour to be tapioca flour. Here I kind of underballed it just a little bit for no particular reason.
So we're just going to stir up the dry ingredients. Okay, I think that looks pretty good coated. So now we're going to use the pastry cutter to get this started. We got the butter cut in. Next is we're going to add the ice water. Sam's going to cut in while I add the water. Usually I add kind of a tablespoon at a time, just until we get it right. So couple first. Calls for a 1/2 cup, but I've often found 1/2 cup for what I've been doing is not enough. And then come to find out that this flour mixture will take a little bit of extra water that we may need more.
Indeed.
Okay, should we try it?
Yeah, I think we're going to need, how much more water do we have?
Tablespoon.
Let's do a tablespoon. I think that'll be good. We don't want to give it too much water.
I'm going to try it here.
How does that feel compared to your gluten pie?
You know, it actually feels really similar. It really does. So
there we go.
So we'll get this all balled up into one giant ball and then go. So we have the dough chilling. It's been in there 2 hours. We actually have 2 discs, but we may only use one. So we're going to start with one, but it's firmed up nice.
Very nice. We actually had this debate off camera about how best to roll this out. Originally, the thought was, hey, let's just use flour on the cutting board, but in my experience, that doesn't work super well with gluten-free flours, and so we decided to use parchment paper to keep it from sticking, but still flour the surface just so that we get a little bit of that flour in on the dough.
Yeah, my tendency would have been just to treat it as regular flour, but you know what? As I put this on the rolling pin, there is definitely a different texture to this 1-to-1 flour than regular flour, and feels a little grainier.
Yeah. And you can see, like, I don't know, I'll show the camera here, but you can see that there, it doesn't really stick to the rolling pin the way that normal flour would, and so that's why I was, like I said, we were having this debate off camera about how best to do this, and my advice is to start just rolling it. Let's use a sandwich of the parchment.
Yeah. I can't see what I'm doing. You know, the initial roll does seem to be treating it as flour, except it does appear a little more cracking, but that may just be just because it's cold, because that happens with the regular flour as well as we roll.
Yeah, and that's one thing that with gluten-free flour, it really starts to crack, and so you need to really coax it along to the shape that you want. A lot of pushing it back into place.
You can see it really is cracking a lot more than a regular one. Does water help if you get some water on it?
We can certainly try that.
Because I use water, like when I'm patching the corners, I use water
that'll help.
to blend it back together.
Yeah, I'll get a bowl of water.
Yeah, so it really does. It cracks. It's a lot trickier to deal with. I will give it that. Now there's a piece that cracked totally off.
That's all right. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right. Here's
and maybe
don't be gentle with it. Gotta really just treat it mean, treat it lean, and just really get stuck in. It's like digging a trench, right? You're not going to dig a trench by going slow. That's how I treat it. See, already, yeah, it's curling up a bit, but we can pull it off. And see, as we kind of just treat it mean, it kind of pushes the cracks together in just by kind of being aggressive and really just having at.
Yeah, that's definitely a different though.
And I think we were talking before, kind of as forming the ball relative to kind of a gluten dough, it feels much, it feels very, very similar. But here, the actual process of working with it is when the difference really starts to show. You don't have the gluten strands, the stickiness to tie it all together. You're kind of relying on artificial stickiness, usually in the form of xanthan gum. Alright. And so really, what I'd like to think about when I'm rolling out this gluten-free pie is just keeping the middle. We want the middle to be the circle, and so the edges will fray, and that's fine, but as we kind of press it all together, we just want that middle circle to really come through. Alright, what do we think?
Need more?
Any more thin spots? No, I think we're alright.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so there's our pie crust. We have a little bit of trimming to do, and we're going to start the topping. So what we have here is marionberries. These are marionberries that I just received, fresh from a garden. Thanks, Deb. Appreciate the donation. When I saw her Thursday, I still had no idea what kind of pie I was making, and she asked if I wanted marionberries, and
Self-select.
it suddenly became a marionberry pie. And as you've probably seen through the videos, I of course cannot resist
experimentation, let's call it.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to try something different. So this is actually going to be a marionberry custard pie. We'll get to more about what we're doing with the custard in a bit, but that's the basic premise. First thing we're going to do is we're going to, I don't know if you can tell, these are really liquidy. They've been washed and cleaned. They were handed to me ready to go. I just walked home with a bag. Well, I didn't walk home, I drove. So what I learned over this is a big help is cooking some of it down.
Makes sense.
And using that as instead of letting the whole pie. So the juices, I'm going to try and get into the part I cooked down. The bigger whole ones we're going to use for the whole pie. So we'll just let this sit in there. We'll drain some of it off and pull some of them back. We'll put the rest in the bowl, and away we go. Got our berries separated. See, we got some that we're going to cook down with all the juice we have. And then some whole ones that are going to make the base of the pie that this is going to go on top of. Going to add a little bit of cornstarch to this as we cook it down, and fill up the crust with the berries, and away we go. And we find ourselves at the stove, and these are the berries we're going to cook down. I have a cornstarch berry mixture, probably the best cornstarch you'll ever taste. But this is going to be used to thicken it as we cook down the berries. So let's get started. Turn this up to kind of a medium, straight up medium, and we'll start cooking down the berries. Okay, we have the berries cooked down. Beautiful. They look good. I just simmered it. I got the cornstarch in, simmered it, got it to boiling for about a minute, and then simmered it for about a minute. And hopefully this will help thicken the berries. Got the whole berries in there. And now the next step is just dumping this in over top of it a little bit. Alrighty. So, right here we have a marionberry pie. One thing that I don't usually do in my pies, and I'm going to continue this, is I'm not adding any sugar to this. It's all natural sweetness. But here's the surprise, and we have no clue if this will work. This is intensely debated amongst us two here. When I did my research for this pie, loose term, one of the things I found is if you see a custard berry pie, it's usually a custard with berries put in the pie. We're flipping that. We're making a berry pie, and we're going to put some custard in the berry pie.
I was suspicious. I continue to be suspicious.
So am I. So what we're going to do is we're going to bake this and hope it sets up a little bit. The idea behind the custard, it's going to be a vanilla custard. The idea behind the custard is try to emulate an ice cream and berry pie. So that's why we're going with vanilla.
Ice cream.
Yeah, so when we get it cooked, hopefully we can separate the pie like that and put a little dollop of custard in the pie.
This gives me hope because even just now it hasn't set or cooked at all. And already there was a divot that was able to be formed.
So next step, we put it in the oven. It's cooking to about, it's preheated to 400 degrees. I'm going to cook this for about 20 minutes to see where it sets up. And while that's going on, we're going to be cooking the custard. Okay, a little bit of shift of plans here.
I was right. The custard did not set and the pie did not set quite as much as was anticipated.
Yeah, the pie's a little bit juicy, the custard's a little bit thin. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to finish baking the pie, bake the custard like you usually would do a custard, and then when they come out, we'll make the holes and we'll let it chill instead of bake with the custard inset. So first thing we got to do is throw a quick egg wash on here, because we want this nice and gorgeous golden brown. The other thing I noticed with the
gluten-free,
that's the whole point of what we're doing. The gluten-free crust is, there's less of a need, or it's easier to make a fancy edge to the crust because it does form much easier than a traditional dough where you have to crimp it down and do all kinds of things. This is much more of a form crust that you just form it whatever you want it to do. And according to my expert here, the gluten-free also is a little bit crummier. And one of the more popular things I noticed when you're looking at the custard berry pie, oh, by the way, technically this is a tart because there's no top on it. So, but what you get is a lot of the recipes called for like a shortbread crust because of the because it's crummy.
There you go.
Not bad crummy, but crummy.
Gluten-free would be
takes care of that.
Right up that alley.
Yeah. So we're good. So we got a nice egg wash on it. We're going to throw it in the oven with the custard. Probably another half an hour or so. See how it goes. Take a peek at it, and come back and finish putting it together. First of all, the custard was a flop.
I claim that I was right all along.
See, I don't know. I think the custard was so bad we never had a chance to see what it would do. So, but when it came out, bad consistency. I didn't like the flavor. Tried it a couple different ways. Tried to salvage it. Neither one worked. So we just scrapped the custard. But now we have a lovely Marionberry pie with a gluten-free crust. It looks like it's set up really well.
Let's find out.
But this is always the test.
Ooh.
It feels good.
All right.
There.
First piece, moment of truth.
Moment of truth. Oh, look at that.
That, my friend, is a pie.
Now, here we go. Nah, just kidding. It's not going to be me. This pie was made for Sophie, Sam's wife, and she's actually going to get first taste. So we got to prep it. We'll be right back. Okay, we're ready. We got it plated. Now we're just waiting for our special guest, and our special guest is Sophie. Here you go, Sophie. This is our Marionberry pie, gluten-free crust. Had to use ice cream instead of custard because that was a flop.
It's okay. I'm very excited. Gotta get some ice cream, gluten-free pie, cuts well. That's really good.
Not too tart?
No, it's perfect.
Cool. Will you do me a favor and try just the crust?
Mhm.
I want to know how the crust turned out.
Nice and crisp and flaky.
Yeah.
That's quality.
Yes.
I think you have.
Winner.
I think you could start a gluten-free bakery here.
I don't know about that. Okay, so we can chalk this one up as a winner,
A winner.
even though the custard flopped.
The ice cream saved it. This is perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And watch us again next time.